Well, we'll kick off anyway. So why not?
Yeah, I got the recording, so he can watch it if he needs to.
Okay. As I mentioned, I mean, this is a mixture of a lot of different things. In addition to you guys working on the project, you're working on how to work on a project. You're working on Agile, and you're working on learning BC in ERP. So that's probably why we're not making as much progress as we might otherwise be. But I don't think I care. I think we're making decent progress. I think we'll start to make more. Have any of you guys ever heard of the talker model?
I don't think so.
And I'll show it to you as well. And I will do the whole screen share. So this is, can you see that? Oh,
no.
Sharing is paused until you return to the shared window. Okay. That's a new one to me. Now, can you see that?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, we can all see Victor. Hey, Victor. Okay, so this is the 4 stages of teaming.
We can't see anything now. Or I can't, at least.
I just see Victor.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
I don't like looking at myself that much.
Teams just being funky today for some
reason. Yeah, I think it's being buggy today.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Screen 1, desktop. Okay, desktop. Okay, can you see that now?
Yep.
Yes.
Let's put Victor away there.
Yeah, put me away.
There we go.
Okay. Team dynamics. Given that, and I sent you guys kind of a video to look at, or a couple of 3 videos to look at, which I think you'll find interesting, or I hope you'll find interesting. Wow, good. Who was that?
Yeah, I watched them.
Good, fair play.
I just finished watching them.
I'll be watching them soon.
Yeah, well,
it was nice how it was all the same person, so it was like the structure of the videos were like easy to follow.
Good.
Yeah.
Fine, and again, I mean, what the videos were about was why it's a terrible idea to use Agile for ERP, and here we are. A little bit about D365 and choosing a partner and why it's so fragmented and a complete mess, which I kind of alluded to in one of my longer emails. And then I think the other was why he should have been fired.
Yeah. That was funny.
Which I also agree with on several levels. I used to work for KPMG, Big Four Consulting. He worked for PwC, the Big Four: PwC, Deloitte, Accenture, and KPMG. And they are great opportunities for growth. They're great opportunities to learn. They're a little bit brutal, but good. And I got to show you something funny. I'll show you something in a minute. Well, I think I might have mentioned this. Okay, so definitely have a look. And then, as I mentioned, I have a rebuttal, which I'll just send out. I just thought it'd be amusing to kind of get different perspectives. I certainly always enjoy them. So the idea of this, and there's a few different forms of it. As a matter of fact, I have 2 here. There's model. This is prettier. I'll send you the link to this too. So we're in the forming storming, right? Because we ain't, we want to be norming and performing. And it's actually, you know what I mean? It is, if you know where you're at and you know where you want to get, it can make it better or easier to kind of take the actions to get there. So we're meeting, we're learning about the opportunities and challenges, agrees goals. We are starting to agree the goals, and we're beginning to tackle the tasks. Team members tend to behave quite independently. maybe motivated, but are usually relatively uninformed of the issues and objectives. Does that sound familiar, guys?
Yeah.
Very.
Mature team members begin to model appropriate behavior, even at this early phase, and the environment also plays an important role. So this is a suboptimal environment, lads. It's a COVID environment in which, yes, we're remote. It means we can't come to the same place. We can't whiteboard. We can't interact as comfortably as we could. So we're having to overcome that, right? But here we are. Does this sound familiar? Because I know that I'm feeling it. High dependence on leader for guidance and direction. This is probably true too. Individual. So if you're feeling like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? You'd be right. Leaders must be prepared to answer lots of questions. I'm not getting as many questions as I would like. I will say that. But that's okay. Processes are often ignored. Oh, God, you wouldn't believe how many processes we're ignoring. Members test tolerance of system and leader directs. Yeah. Again, this says we're not doing the things we should be, but we'll get there, right? And again, I'll send you a link. Second stage of team development is where the group starts to sort itself out, gain each other's trust. Starts when they voice their opinions, and as a result, there's a conflict. So there's some, differences. Positive and polite atmosphere. See, you know what I mean? We all think we invented our reality, and as a matter of fact, we don't. I don't know about the cliques and factions yet. Clarity of increases, uncertainties persist. Compromises may be required to enable progress. I don't think we're there yet. And leader coaches, that's my favorite role as a leader is coaching, especially with a group like this. It's not reasonable, and it's not reasonable for me to expect that you know everything or that you know a lot of things. I do think that it's my style to kind of throw folks in at the deep end and go, hey, figure as much of this out as possible. You might get a bit disheartened, but don't, and then let's all kind of figure it out, okay?
Yeah.
The norming and performing agreement consensus, we want to get to where we can have agreement and consensus. We understand our roles and responsibilities. We're moving forward with them. They're going to be quite dynamic, though. Big decisions are made by the group. I would like to get that. Small decisions, commitment, unity is strong, team engagement, fun, social activities. God knows we could if we could ever actually get out. But normally I do like to have a beer, just kind of chill and kind of just engage. But that's proving quite challenging, and I need to figure all that out. The processes and working style. Each team that comes together has its own style, and that's cool. And this is even better, because did you notice that the work of the leader goes down as the capability of the team goes up?
Yeah.
And I tell people my goal, even though I've never actually done it, but my goal is that if I wanted to, I could go play golf. And that you guys would just call occasionally and say, hey, we got this issue, we're dealing with it, what should we do? And that's possible. I don't agree with overseas. As I said, I'll send you this. This is kind of, what I would do is just take this as, hey, we want to get to these places as a team, and here's some of the kind of bullets around kind of what we might want to think of ourselves into. And self-organizing. That is a very dangerous thing, but we can talk about it another time. Anyway, so our goal as a team over the next while, weeks, maybe less, maybe more, is to get to here. And then if we're really good and we start to really kind of get to know what we're about, we'll get to here. Okay?
Right.
But understanding that you're probably, because you're students and because you're new to an awful lot of the things we're doing, you're starting out over here, right? Where there's just, there's a lot of education going on. So I wouldn't. What I would do is not beat yourself up if you feel like, hey, we're still kind of bouncing around, um, because I think that will come, and that's what we kind of want to focus on getting to as a team. Okay, Grant. Grant. What is next is, let's talk about, hey, Faisal and Jonathan,
Hey.
you made it. Welcome, Jonathan.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, bud.
Hello. Sorry for the delay. I was out voting, so
Oh,
Oh, nice.
well done. I'm just gonna say, I voted already too. I'm trying to talk Faisal into it. Hey, Faisal.
I did.
Ah,
I'm trying to talk my family to go and vote.
good. Hey, early voting is a great idea because you don't have to go to your specific district, and you can kind of shop around for the one with the shortest queue. That's what I do.
Took me 5 minutes.
There you go. See, once the first kind of few days go by, people are, things die down. It's a bit like a movie. You never want to watch it on the first night, and you never want to watch it on the last. Right. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. We started the process of, we did one user story. I'd like to go in and do a few more, and then we can. So I'm going to do a few more. It's 12:45 now, and then I would like, since all of you are on the line, and I know this is kind of, I'm going to do it anyway. Schedule some time, right? Because then we can make sure you've got it. Before we get into, and just because it's kind of the most important thing, I've lined up a set of Q&A, a 1 hour Q&A with the customer. They know this is a project, they know it's a student project, but they're a real live commercial print company, right? It's JPS Graphics. I just want to make sure, is everyone available at 12:30 on Thursday of next week?
Yeah, I should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, I'll send out I'll forward the invite. What I'd like to do is forward the invite to your UNT address, and then would each of you accept that invite in Outlook? And that will go directly back to the CEO of that company.
Sure.
And I would really like to make sure we don't fuss with him. So, just do the accept, or if you can, do the thing we talked about, which is accept if you can, be tentative if you can't with an explanation, or actually, no, in this case, just accept. That's all we'll do. Because this is our first kind of meeting, and I don't want to, I want it to go well. Right. Well, I've promised that him is a list of the questions. So I'm going to send that out to you guys. If there's something, just have a look at it, have a think about it, right? Because there's a few things with that. One, I would like kind of your thoughts and insights, because guess what? I don't have all the good ideas. I don't even have all the ideas. And having your input helps. That's thing one. And thing two is that I'd like to see if we can't have some time next week to choreograph that, because I'd like each of you to have an opportunity to ask some questions, kind of own an area, and feel like, yeah, okay, I understand this now, or at least, just try it out, because then you can put that on your resume and speak to it, which is, conducting customer interviews. Okay, so that's coming. Just wanted to kind of confirm that. Okay, let's get into user stories. We're going to spend about half an hour, maybe a little bit more, on user stories, doing our vote, story points, and then spend some time just kind of, we've got one-on-ones that we know are the mentoring things, then Kyle, since you're the inaugural Scrum Master, we need to get kind of a working session on Jira and on Scrum. And then let's also use a few minutes to kind of get a sense of the cadence of the Scrum and why they're important. Okay. And they're important because we're all human, as it turns out.
Yeah.
I'll just say that, and we'll get into why. Yeah, I guess we are. Okay. Right. Put that away. Get out VerCom. And then I know you're on the line, Faisal. At some stage, you and I need to get together and see if we can't get some working sessions going with Arif, Arif on stuff. We'll talk about that. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I think we did, we said it was 3 points. Does that sound familiar to you?
3 points, yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. And I'll just show you. As I keep saying, I am woefully behind and I'm slightly letting the team down, but I'm catching up. What I'm behind on is user story creation. Now, I'm going to try to get ahead by delegating some of that to you guys. But I think, as I said to begin with, here, I'm hoping you can see this. I think you guys need more, just more knowledge, more, period. I don't see copy. Ah, there's copy. I don't think I've ever actually copied a file in this way. Copy the file. Let's see what it does. Okay, created another background. I'm going to rename this to Plant Manager. And then I'm going to say somebody gets.
I'm going to step to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
No worries. Great. All right. So as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 user stories. That's not terrible, and we'll see how we go. What I would like to do, and here's what I'll do. Since Jonathan and Kyle, you guys are the two that want to do code, I'm going to give you like code-specific user stories around some of those pieces of development that we talked about, which is the estimating and the scheduling.
Got it.
The way that, but just to understand the way all it, well, actually, let's talk about that. So, no, don't let me jump around. Okay.
Sorry about
So
that.
User stories.
User stories, right. So let's start with base configuration. It's the user story. These are not really, these are kind of funky beginning user stories rather than like true user stories, but they still follow the same format, and it kind of amounts to the same thing, right? So, and we'll talk about this in a second. That's what I was going to talk about. Then I'm like, do we need to, do we not? But I think we will. But anyway, let's get to this. As the product owner, that's me, I want Business Central set up with the basics for, and since we're going to be talking to JPS Graphics, for JPS Graphics in Dallas, Texas. It's setup has the following major components: company info, locations, chart of accounts, payments, and banking. This user story will require some investigation. Oh shit, Sherlock. Research and interaction with the product owner, that would be me, to finalize the content and setup. Right. And again, I'm going to land the helicopter and take off and take a high-level view, then land again. So if I'm jumping around, don't worry about it. I think it's a useful way to learn. So acceptance criteria: the basic capabilities of the system will be ready for a walkthrough by JPS Graphics based on an external understanding of their operations. In other words, we haven't met with them yet, but they're on the web. We understand where they are. We understand the company name. In terms of chart of accounts, they're a manufacturer, so we can look at, what would be a standard chart of accounts for manufacturer. In your case, you can figure out what the hell a chart of accounts is and why it matters. And the short for chart of accounts is COA. I'm going to reach out to David and ask if he has a contact on the in the finance faculty. Do any of you guys know anyone in the finance area at all?
No.
No worries.
I don't think so.
I was going to ask anyway, but I'm going to try to enlist a finance student in some of this, if possible.
Yeah, I don't know any.
Yeah, and the reason being that, once you get to the videos, by all means take a look. But and again, I'm going to send out the rebuttal because I think that's going to clarify a few things as well. But the key here is a lot of what we're doing, which is enterprise resource planning development, is understanding the business and its processes and applying that understanding to the technology. And again, my opinion is that it doesn't matter whether you're coding or not. That's the first rule of actual development, right? Which is, what's the business outcome and what's my simplest, quickest way to get to that outcome? Because simple and quick tends to be less expensive than complicated and lengthy. Not always. There's a difference between, we'll get into it. Anyway, don't worry about it. So company info is a setup. There is a thing called company info in Business Central. Locations, again, is a setup. It could be location or locations. We'll have a think about that. Chart of accounts is literally what it says. It's and there is actually industry standards. There's like kind of this is US GAAP. I'll say that. But it's plus WIP. Okay. Payments and banking. I'll tell you what, I'm going to share BC Enterprises banking details, the bank number or whatever, but setting up payments, because we want to get paid and we want to pay, and we have a bank, right? So this is kind of just the base. Listen, we're going to set this up. It's going to say JPS graphic. It's going to have the address or whatever JPS graphics is, and we're just going to kind of do that. So let's do any questions?
US GAAP and WIP, are those financial procedures, or what are those?
Yeah. GAAP stands for generally agreed accounting principles. And WIP stands for WIP stands for work in progress.
Work in progress.
And the reason WIP is important is because the commercial print business is it's a build to order business.
Yeah.
So as things move, through the process, you end up with work in progress. And as I found out when I was running through it this week, if you don't have a work in process account, you can't post to it. If you can't post to it, nothing friggin' works, because at its core, Business Central is a finance system. And I think that's why we need at least an occasional visit from a finance person. Because while I have, through the years, acquired a substantial amount of knowledge as a finance person, I am not one. I will say that. Ooh, it's my dog. Let me ignore. Good. Okay, I'll call back. Actually, can you guys see this? Oh, you can't. There you go.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, it's her Accenture hat.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna mute you and talk to her for a second call.
Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. And it was nothing. She wants to know the recipe for a vegetarian quiche. It's just that normally they call if there's a message, leave a message. If it's 2 calls, that yeah. So the funny story I didn't tell you is that she interned with Accenture, and she called me up as you just saw there, and she did the 2 or 3 calls, and I picked up, and she's like, "Well, Dad, could you pick me up today?" And I'm like, "Sure, here I could probably pick you up, sweetie. When would you like to be picked up?" Now. Sweetie, I'm in Grapevine and you're in Irving. Now is not really on the agenda. And she's like, "Well, Dad, we're just doing Agile. So this is just Agile planning." And I'm like, "Sweetie, we both know a lack of planning is not Agile." But it was fun. Anyway, it was funny, and she has a PowerPoint on Agile, and I'll share it with you. It's kind of like sad. Okay. So, sorry, distraction.
I get it.
Does anyone remember what the user story was about? So gap we explained, whip we explained.
I have to double check exactly.
It's setting up the startup account. On. On the user. So what I would like is, could you please vote? How many points to do that?
Oh, we had the yeah. Remind me, what numbers should we have the points be between?
Okay, so, and that's good. Hey, good question. So the minimum kind of unit of effort is 1 point, and that represents kind of, just kind of adding a field or just doing one setup. Then you have 2, which is twice as hard, 3, which is 3 times as hard, 5, which is 5 times as hard, 8, which is 8 times as hard, kind of that. And then it gets up to 13 is the next. It's a Fibonacci scale. And the idea there, just so as you know, in terms of that scale, is that as something gets more complex, our ability to accurately estimate the effort is lower. So therefore, the points associated with it are not just 1 point more, they're 3 points more, they're 5 points more, because the bigger it is, the if you like, the greater the scale of difference. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it goes 1, 2, 3, because it's like, well, 1 is, I can get there. Then it jumps to 5, then it jumps to 8, and then it jumps to 15, 13. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just to be cool in Fibonacci. Although I do think that the guys probably did want that as well. Okay, so just vote. And if we were being absolute purists, we wouldn't look at each other's vote, but I don't care.
Oh.
That's because what happens very often in kind of real sprint planning, because what we're doing is the second half of sprint planning, is that whoever is kind of the most experienced person votes, and everyone else goes, well, I don't want to think about this because that's hard, and B, I don't trust myself, so I'm just going to vote whatever they're voting.
Wherever they put it. Yeah.
And the reason that you don't want that really is that you have kind of a little bit of crowdsourcing around the estimate, and the most expert person won't get to do all the friggin' work, right? So, your points are your points, and that's why it's just one of those each little rule in Scrum actually has a purpose and a meaning. It's not just there to check a box. And if it feels like it is, you should always ask, well, why are we doing this? The why is always important, because it then gives you a context for what's going on. I'll just share that with you. Got 1, 2, 3. Jonathan, we don't have your vote, man. Or do we? See you down here.
It says I'm not a member of the group, so it won't let me chat. But I would say it too.
Oof.
2. Done. Okay. So it's between a 2 and a 3. We got 3 2s and 2 3s. So here we're just going to do the exercise, and it's part of building the team and whatever. It's okay. So Kyle, you said 2. Why?
Yep. Well, this is just for writing or figuring out the user story stuff, right?
Well, this is actually for.
Or is it for the interview?
This is for. I'm glad you asked. This is for. In Business Central, when I go in, I'll just show you that.
Yeah.
You. That is an excellent question. Okay, so that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant either. Jesus Christ. How to. There you go. How to. Right. This is for getting started. It's down here. Setting up Business Central. This is neatly described. Standard configurations, blah, blah, blah. So, although in this case, so you're going to go into Business Central, whoever gets to do this. They're going to create a company, and there's a little process to do that. Then they're going to specify the name of the company, the address, just other details about it. And they're going to create locations. And because you've never done it before, you're probably going to stumble on it a little bit, but they'll figure it all out. And then you're going to set that up. And then you're going to go to Chart of Accounts, and you're going to see Chart of Accounts, and you're going to see if it already has, I'll get to it, a WIP account or WIP accounts. And then you're going to add those and kind of give them a name. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let me just check again. And then you're going to set up a bank. It's going to be Bank of America. You're going to set the branch or whatever, and then set up payment types. And you're pretty much going to follow this, these processes. So setting up finance, defining payment methods. You're not going to do posting groups because that's a different user story. You're going to do some, I think this is another user story around the details of setting up the finance. But the banking is all somebody's. Make sense?
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I was a bit confused about it, but I think that it's still a 2.
Okay. And then Victor, you said 3. Could you kind of chat to the group about why you feel that's a 3 rather than a 2?
I think it's because we're not like changing something that's already there. We're like adding something new.
Mm-hmm.
So I just figured that's like not as easy as a 1, and then I don't think it's twice as hard as a 1. I think it's the next one after that, and I didn't think it was as hard as a 5, so I just cut it in the middle.
Those are perfectly reasonable. Okay, so you've heard why somebody said 2, and you've heard why somebody said 3. What's your consensus vote? does anyone want to change, or do you want to keep it the way it is? Or now that you know more, because some folks have asked questions, what would you like this to be? And does anybody want to revote?
No, I think it still should sit at a 2.
Yeah, I think 2 is fine.
Okay,
I'm kind of in between the two, so.
there you go. Well, and so that's part of Scrum etiquette, which is to say, okay, the Scrum Master, Kyle, you would normally do this, but you don't know to do this. So the next time you will be able to do this is you kind of facilitate the meeting. You're looking at, okay, you get people, you and the product owner, which is me, answer questions on the user story from the team, right?
Gotcha.
Any clarifications. And normally one would also write clarifications into the user story, or you take notes and update the user story in the backlog, which we'll get to. Then there's almost always a difference of opinion on the points, and the way to, a good way is to just ask somebody who's on the high end, okay, what was your thought on why you wanted that? Ask someone on the low end, what's their thought on that? That way, it's coming from the people that actually have that opinion. And then, if the team wants to revote, it can. If it doesn't have to. And what you're looking for is a general consensus. It's not exactly a majority voting or stack ranked or whatever, but you're trying to reach a general consensus, and then we all move on. Make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. And you can see that what that's doing as part of sprint planning is saying, okay, well, we're going to have 2 weeks ahead of us or 3 weeks ahead of us. Everyone on the team gets to see the work, and everybody on the team gets to participate in deciding how much work that really represents. So what it isn't is a PM coming down and telling you how hard you should work or what the work is that you're doing. You get to decide that, which when you think about it is logical, right? Yeah. How would a PM know everything, right? They might think they do because they have the title, but that's all, it's just a logical way to organize work. Again, I'll get off my soapbox. But, yeah, I will get back on it in a few minutes. Okay. Well, you see, and again, yes, a Scrum Master could be described as a project manager. And again, it gets away from the more traditional kind of, managers getting together to decide what the workers will do kind of approach. Yeah. Property socialist. Moving on. Okay. So good. That was another user story. So let's go and look at some more. As base configuration, let's talk about financial configuration. 103.
Are these on Jira yet?
No.
Oh, right. Okay. I was just making sure I wasn't missing them or something.
No.
Okay.
And Kyle, that will be part of the working session that you and I go through. And just know too that I am not a Jira expert. So you
Neither
and I, it will be a true working session in the sense that it won't be a demo or a training. It will be us working to get this stuff in.
Because these are the stories are what would be on the backlog typically, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And then what we'll be doing is creating a sprint. So we'll be deciding that these are in the sprint, and I haven't done the spreadsheet yet, but I will, because it's easier on a spreadsheet, to be honest. And then we'll be allocating them to the sprint, and then they'll be on the Scrum wall, and you get to discuss progress on those user stories in the Scrum wall. Make sense?
Mm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, as an accounting manager, I want to have a basic setup so that my GL is consistent and, for God's sake.
GL?
Yeah, what's GL mean?
That is General Ledger.
General Ledger.
Got it.
Yeah. assistant and configured into the central server. As you can see, user story. So I'm going to tell you about how I go about user stories and how I recommend, because all of you are going to be writing user stories for the next sprint, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You start with two things. One, the epics kind of came out of the original deliverable, right? Here's our functional requirements. Here's functionally what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
Then what you're doing is you're starting with, okay, there's the epic, there's what we need. Then you start to develop ideas about, what that represents. You're breaking that down into user stories. And as you get kind of what you think is, okay, I now have, so for instance, it's profile, role center, setup. So it's the setup, it's profiles, role center, the whole thing. That's kind of what we're doing. Then, what I did was I went in and I said, okay, well, I want to do financial setup, or I want to do setup, right? Well, setup is a bloody big thing. And the way I figured that out was I went in and looked at the system and I looked at setup. And then as each thing breaks down, what I would always do with the user story is go back to the system and actually work your way through what it is you're trying to ask people to do so that you can be in front of your peers, this group, and be able to explain that, right?
Right.
And so there's a fair amount of work in a user story if you want to do it right, because you need to be able to stand up in front of a group and explain it, right? And answer questions about it. And you want to put as much into it as you can so that folks don't have to find you in the middle of the sprint to have you explain it. Now, they don't have to find you, but, and again, Scrum Master, one of the things that I find very helpful is that you have a kickoff when you pick up a user story.
Yeah.
So as you might imagine, we're all going to agree X number of user stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Per
going to be
sprint.
in the sprint, right?
Yeah.
Then we're not going to start all of them all at once. Depending on the group and group dynamics, we're going to pick up 2 or 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
As you pick those up, you want to talk to the person who wrote the user story, because you're going to read it, but you're also going to just say, okay, give me a sense of it, and we'll get into the pods in a minute. Give me a sense of what you're really looking for here, and kind of have a kickoff meeting. It's very useful to have that kind of almost formal kickoff, just because then you've reached consensus within the team about what that represents. And by the way, you can have the product owner there or not there, depending on how sure you are of the acceptance criteria, right?
Okay.
And in a non-corporate environment, or in an even better environment, you'd have the end user there as part of the kickoff. With the company I worked for, GameStop, all of our users were not in the States, so that was slightly harder, and it was sometimes hard to get their mind share. But ideally, you want to just at least ping them. So I'll say that. But okay, so here's the user story. And we talked about GL, General Ledger. And so General Ledger is the GL, the General Ledger is core to every single piece of finance you will ever do. And if you're doing resource planning and you're doing business applications, you will hit GL all the time. And if you happen to want to invest money or just understand how business is transacted, you will start to understand GL, because it used to be an actual physical book, but it is the place that all transactions are recorded. So if I sell something, or I buy something, or I make something, or I pay someone, or I receive a payment, or any and all things go to the GL.
Okay.
Right. So, and if you're in accounting, it's your life.
Right.
which is probably why I'm not. So set up the following major components. Posting group. This is absolutely, totally, and completely critical to the functionality, stability, and everything that happens in Business Central / Nav.
Yeah.
Just so as you know. Account schedules are all about grouping accounts in your GL so that you can report on them. Accounting periods. I mean, they're relatively straightforward. I say that. So you've got a thing called a fiscal month, right? Some people have a calendar month. Some people have a fiscal month. In other words, am I 4 weeks? Am I 3 weeks? What I will tell you is that accounting is all about time, right? And periods of time. Because, you'll see it when you're looking at a report. Like, how much money did I make last week? How much money did I make last month? Well, is that calendar month, which can have 30 days or 31 days? Is that fiscal, where it's evened out? Then it's how much money and how much sales did I make last quarter? And then usually you have a monthly close where people are saying, okay, I'm going to add up now. I'm going to add up how much I took in, how much I spent out, what's my gross margin, what's my net. In other words, kind of how am I doing financially, right? Because as you might imagine, a business is flowing all the time, right? Money's flowing in, money's flowing out. I'm making things, I'm selling things, I'm doing things. So I need to be able to take almost like a snapshot of, okay, as of, we're coming up on, say, as of October 30th, the end of October, how am I doing? What do I need to change? Am I making money? Am I losing money? Where are my customers? So that's called a close. It's a month end. And it's on a period, right? Hence period setup. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Now, it's, again, not wildly complicated to set it up, but once it's there, it starts to matter. I've thrown in sales tax. I did notice the Microsoft site was all about VAT. That just shows its European origins. Here, when I'm talking about user setup, I'm actually talking about accounting permissions. And what that is some people are allowed to, so you've got this concept, and God, I'm throwing a lot at you, lads.
Okay.
It's called posting, right? So, again, it comes from when the ledger was an actual book, and people would write into the ledger, right? And the thing about that is that's recording your financial transaction. That makes it real, right? That makes it something that you are signing off actually happened, right? Not everybody gets to do that, as you might imagine. And what I will share with you is that modern systems, not like QuickBooks, that's the enemy, lads, in case you're wondering, won't let you just edit that, right? Because when you think about it, you've just said, this is what happened. It's financial, it has meaning, and it's going to cost somebody money, right? Being able to go in and kind of sneakily change that.
It's like modifying evidence.
Yeah.
Or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So it is. It's tampering.
Tampering, there you
go. So here's the thing. Most systems won't let you, right? Once it's there, it's there.
So what if they make a mistake?
They have to post a reversing entry. They have to go, oh shit, I didn't mean to post $100 to that account. So what they do is they post minus $100 to that account.
Okay.
So they have what they call a balancing entry. Now, you can imagine that if you're the accounting manager and you're responsible for the books, you do not want every warehouse worker or guy who walked in off the street posting to your accounts, right? So that's user setup, right? And then cash flow analysis is just, I think, will be very useful for mid and small and medium-sized businesses so they can see where their cash is going. Because you can be extremely profitable. You guys know this, right? You can be extremely profitable and still go bust. You know how you do that? What you do is you sell a whole bunch of shit. You don't collect it because the customers are slow in paying. And then you can't pay your vendors or your payroll because you don't actually have the money on hand to do that. So cash flow really matters. And it's not the same as profitability. So I thought I'd throw that in. Okay. Again, makes sense?
Yeah.
Good. Investigation, research, and interaction with product owner highlights, basic capabilities, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's both.
Oh.
Yeah. See, the more you know, the less certain you are. I used to have a joke about that.
8?
I have jokes about everything. Okay, Victor, give me your 8.
I had a feeling y'all would ask. You said the setup is very in depth and hard and taxing. And I think just setting up all these accounts, and because since this is such an important part of a business, I feel
Real
like
quick, will there be any like programming in here?
There's
that could change mine.
Well, so that was you, Kyle, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't programming. There isn't programming. But posting group setup is might as well be coding. How about that?
Okay.
Because you've got so B. I wasn't trying to catch you out. It's just that I know a lot. But you can probably see it's a 3-dimensional issue. So when I post, so let's start with GL. GL is all about the accounts, hence chart of accounts, right? So when I say, well, this, when I sell this, I want it to go to this account, and it can be specific to the customer, it could be specific to the item, it could be either or both because there's precedence rules, and the sales tax is going to go to one place because obviously I'm going to be sales taxes. So just to kind of give you an example, if I sell, as you do, an item for $100, I actually get $108 from my customer because I get the cost of the item plus sales tax if I'm charging it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's one transaction that I have to break into two, and I'm going to post $100 to a revenue account. Now, I might have my accounts broken up so that I might have it broken up so that I have a labels account, and I have a catalogs account, and I have a services account because I want to report those differently so that I can check my I just don't want to have sales. I want to check my revenue. Okay, am I making money on labels? Am I making money on catalogs? Am I making money on services? Which one am I making the most money on, right? Mm-hmm. So the system will automatically put that in the right account if I tell it to. And the way I tell it to is my posting group setup. So the system, every time it posts something to GL, will look at posting group setup. And depending on the categorization, and there's about 3 or 4 different categorizations, or at least 2 or 3 of that, it will post it to different places. And when you design your posting group setup, you're anticipating all of that. And if you get it wrong, the poor bastard at the end of it, that would be the accounting manager, at the end of the month is going, why do I have $60 in this bloody account? Where the hell did it come from? And why is it there? Or vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Everybody like to revote?
I think that 3 is still reasonable.
Okay.
Drop down.
Who else?
Like it still sounds like it'll be kind of tricky, but I feel like
This one just seems more difficult than the previous story. That's why I moved it up.
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I'm just basing it off the most recent one,
Yeah.
or the one we just talked about.
I feel like it's mostly research, right? Like coming to understand how exactly all
no.
these things work.
No, there is actual setup. There is
Okay,
actual
gotcha.
setup. I mean, that's why it says requires research and setup, and that's one of the little rules of Agile.
Mm.
It has to be a testable outcome, or at least ideally you want it to be a testable outcome.
Right.
So, and I think it'll be close, but probably not perfect. Listen, I know more than you guys, so I'll just tell you, this is at least an 8.
Really?
Oh, all right.
Okay.
And the reason is the sales tax has complexity, the posting group has complexity. User setup would be straightforward, but there's actually a lot of complexity to this. So I'm going to mark your cards for you on this one, just because it would be a little bit unfair to kind of sucker you into it and then let you see all of the mess that's involved. And again, it's one of those things where, as a product owner, I can provide advice. I'm not supposed to vote.
Right.
But, okay, cool. Okay, well, we didn't get to finish. But we're running out of time. Or we do another. That's that one. Here's what I think I can do, though. So we did financial configuration. We did base configuration. We'll do plant configuration. So what I can tell you is we did AP clerk. AR is similar, so we'll say that's 3 points. We'll say that security profile is that's just setting up the security profile. I don't know if we did that one. Let's do that one, and then we'll do plants, and then we'll call it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we and we'll get into some of that too. As an accounts payable clerk, I want to be able to accomplish without encountering security errors, or I don't have the correct access to tables I need. My permission set will need to be associated to an accounts payable user group, and will be modeled on the standard permission set in Business Central Kronos. However, in addition to the standard, I need to be able to view jobs and to look at inventory so that I can gauge reorder points for materials. I also need to be able to add vendors, but not approve them. The reason that you have your AP clerks able to add vendors but not approve them is that you do not want to give a junior member of your staff the ability to create and pay a vendor, because what they'll do is they'll create themselves or their uncle or their distant relative and pay them. So you always want to have some control there that says, okay, well, you can create a vendor, but I get to approve them before you pay them. Or you have a different person pay, then, there's all sorts of ways to kind of manage around that. But, while we all trust everyone, there's always one person that ruins it for all of us. And that's why you have these kinds of separation. That's called separation of duty. So that is an SOD requirement. That's separation of duty. Okay, acceptance criteria. So this is just, here's the activities I want to accomplish, and I don't want to see an error.
SOD.
What's your thoughts? Go ahead. Sorry, question?
Sorry, question. What's an SOD?
Separation of duty.
Oh.
SOD.
Oh, of course. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome, Faisal. See. Cool. Okay, what's your votes?
Can you show the criteria again?
Sure.
Your things covering it. Thanks.
I want to be able to accomplish the following activities without encountering security error. And again, because you guys haven't seen it before, the permission sets, so the way that nav security works is you have a permission set that says you have either read, write, update, or delete access to a table. Now, there is a base permission set already for, I think it's accounts payable. But what this one is saying is that in addition to that access, we should give them vendor access, but not necessarily authorization, but that's a workflow, so it's different. And we should give them access to jobs, right? So that they can see the job, but they can't schedule it. So I don't believe that's in the standard. Make sense?
So we'd have to add some functionality there.
Yeah. Now, what it amounts to, and because again, I want to be very clear, because you haven't seen it yet, is that's the functionality that's getting added is not really functionality. What it is literally entries in a permissions table.
Okay.
But the trick is to know which entries, right? So, you know, there's a keyword here, jobs. So there's going to be a jobs table, right? Underneath the jobs table, though, there's probably going to be other tables. So what this amounts to is going through this process fairly rigorously, right? This process, and kind of recording which tables are required, then cross-checking that against the tables that are in the permission set for this row. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what's involved. It's more of a walkthrough, paying close attention. You know, there's a way to say what tables am I looking at again, and then making sure those are the tables that you set. And then in terms of the QA of that, what you do is you'd assign that role, that security role, to someone or to yourself, and then they would walk through and make sure they didn't see any security issues. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. So, thoughts on that? The 4 is not 1. You can go 1, 2, 3, or 5.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's Fibonacci.
Yeah, it just adds on to the one previous.
In that case.
There we go. See, and again, I hope you guys have. I enjoy this because it's, I guess, what I do, but I do have fun with it.
Yeah, I thought it was like more of a Richter scale type thing where it just doubles each time in difficulty.
No, because you see, so for instance, so the idea here is that 1 is your base unit, right? So
right.
difference between say 2 and 3, right? Because it goes 1, 2, 3, is that you know, usually if it's a 2, it's relatively straightforward. You understand the criteria, you understand what's involved. It's going to be relatively straightforward. So the next one up is really just a 1 up, right? But when you get to a 5, now you've got a different level of complexity and ambiguity, which is more than just a little bit more than a 3, because it just is. And then the next one up is 8, right? Because you're starting to get into, okay, well, now I have a level of complexity to where, I'm going to have some thinking time as well as doing time. Make sense? And the next after that is 8. So that's 3 more, right? So that's almost 50% more. And after that, it's 13. So, you know, that's more than 50% harder, because again, it's a function of the complexity and challenge of that user story. And what I will tell you is that if I get a vote of a 13, that's usually my prompt to say, let's break that into a 5 and an 8.
Yeah.
Right. Other people do that. I've seen 21 pointers. I have never in my life encountered a 21 pointer that actually made it in a sprint. I would just say
ridiculous.
Oh,
That's really high.
Yeah.
well, yeah, but
After that, it would be 34.
yeah,
Yeah,
and,
That'd be ridiculous at that point.
like
yeah,
55.
yeah. I will say that just because I had to, because obviously I've done this before, guys. Just because I've had to, and because it couldn't really be broken down, and because I really needed it in the sprint, I have voted in 13-point user stories, and almost inevitably they don't make it. But shit, you know, I will tell
But
you.
shit, you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So good. So that. Well, okay, we're out of time. We're past time. What we just did is we voted some, I think, good user stories, good starting points in, right? Kyle and I are going to have a working session. Kyle, let me know your availability on Monday, please, and we'll just have a working session to get this in. What we'll do is we'll have it, because we live in COVID and because we're virtual teaming and because of all the things that are going on, we'll break. Just to go back to our storming, norming, and performing, we'll break our own rules. What we'll do is I'll send out a spreadsheet. We'll send out a spreadsheet, you and I, Kyle, saying, okay, here's the user stories, here's the points, here's the point total. Each of you gets an opportunity to just pick, okay, I think we can get X points done in this sprint, and things that kind of count for and against the sprint, right? Things that sprint planning would include is who has vacations? What other things are going on? Do we feel like this is going to be productive because, we don't have a lot of distractions, there isn't other things going on? Do we feel like, okay, well, all of these user stories are pretty much self-contained, so, we're feeling high level of confidence that we can, we won't have any external dependencies. All of those things start to count for the overall delivery in the sprint. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, so each of you, because fundamentally this team, this group of individuals together and collectively are committing to this sprint, gets to do what we call a fist of five, right? 5 says, we got this. It's not going to be a problem. Right. 4 is it's reasonably high level. 3 is, okay, well, if I have we've all been there. If I have a deep breath and a good cup of coffee, I think we can make it. 2 says, here's my reasons, but I just can't see us doing that. And then 1 says, we have no freaking hope of getting all this shit done. Right?
Yeah.
And what and then, as I mentioned, I think before, was that what we do is we start dropping the user stories until we have a consensus around 3 or 4. Make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that virtually, and if we need to get together for 30 minutes, we will Monday, right? Because I want us to start. I want us to start working on these. So let's assume then. So that's going to be Monday. And then, since we're all not working in an office and we're not actually doing this all full time, we're going to compromise on a few things. But sometime on Tuesday, let's have 15 minutes, and let's keep it to 15 minutes to just check in, right? And because it's going to be the first sprint or scrum, that is the first scrum ever, it's going to be a bit of a mess, but that's okay. And it's also the first scrum of a sprint, which is always a bit of a mess. But in that, we're going to pull out the user story, right? So you're going to step up to the board, which is going to be virtual, and just say, well, this is the user story I want to take on. Okay?
Gotcha.
Pods. Let's talk about pods. So let's go back to, this is what I wanted to get to. Let's go back to the user story for a minute. And by the way, I've got a hard stop in 7 minutes, so let's see if I can get this done. you'll notice how there's 3 roles on the user story, right? Those aren't what they look like, right? The developer is the person that's the primary owner, right?
Right.
So it's not necessarily a coder, because a bunch of these, as you probably noticed, in fact, all of them aren't really coding, but they're the person who primarily owns it. Now, the BA is the customer representative, the user representative, customer and process rep, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are contributing, and as we kind of mature out the roles, there will, quite often the BA does a lot of, the person adopting the BA role does a lot of the user story writing, because it's their passion. They're all about process, they're all about business. They kind of do that. The developers, less so, especially if they're doing coding, because it's not as interesting to them. Although, again, my view and my soapbox is that everybody does everything, and that if you're a developer who can write user stories, that's a strength, not a weakness. That's just my opinion. And then QA can be a developer, can be a BA, can be just somebody who specializes in that area. But what they're doing is they're saying, look, it is almost impossible, but I've seen it, but it's almost impossible to QA your own work, because you build your assumptions into your actions, right? Mm-hmm. So you almost always need somebody as a third party to come along and go, hey, have you thought about, or I'm going to do this thing, and it's not going to be the thing you expected me to do. So that person is doing a validation, and they're thinking about exceptions. So what I'm saying is that as you step up, it's kind of step up to the board. Have in mind or ask, because everybody needs to volunteer to this and agree to it, is, okay, who's going to be my BA on this? Who's going to be my QA on this? Or, hey, I'm willing to step up and be the QA on this user story. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a pod. So it's the concept of a pod. And I was going to use a pretty rugby thingy and YouTube-y thing, but we don't have time. I might next time. But that's the idea, that each user story is a pod of 3. There's going to be at least 5, maybe 6 user stories in the next sprint. So everybody will get to be a developer. And probably, in order for this to function, you'll have to volunteer to be a QA and a BA on other user stories. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. And then we're A, out of time, and B, it's too complicated. There's too big a group. I will be reaching out to get slots for the one-on-ones, and I promised you time, each of you a half-hour slot, to walk through creating a user story. And then, as I mentioned, I think, Victor, you're interested in the finance side of things, so yours will be a finance user story.
Sure.
Kyle will do. You guys flip a coin. We'll do something around the scheduling, and then Jonathan will do. Actually, I think Jonathan will do something around scheduling, the visual. Kyle, you're going to be doing Jira and all that, but we'll also do a user story for the estimation. It's going to be interesting anyway, just kind of some of the development. Then Hunter, maybe something around, since you're kind of getting into AWS and that area, something around infrastructure, but we'll figure that out. And then Nick, I think, again, we'll just pick some user stories to get into. Have a think about what you'd like to get into, and just because that way I don't have to guess. Because It's not like there's a shortage of stuff. And then we'll do a user story in that area. Does it make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Thanks, guys. That was I did not expect to get through as much as we got through. That's a lot of concepts that are kind of new to you guys that you're picking up very quickly. So, we're pretty close. We will have at the end of the sprint, and I would say in a week or so, actual like something we can all see that you guys have contributed to, which that's going to be nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
But hopefully too, you're getting a feel for just how complex and huge this stuff is. And
Definitely.
it surprises me that Microsoft markets it as, oh yeah, just open the box and out pops your whole business.
Yeah.
But also probably you can see why there's a good living in this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Have a great one, guys, and expect some emails tonight. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Gotcha.
Have a good one.
See you next
You
time.
too.